Yo, what's up everybody? My name is Yoshino, and welcome back to week 5 of the anime battle Royale. This is a series that I'm doing where I'm watching the 13 most anticipated shows of the up-and-coming anime season, Winter 2020, and I'm dropping off one show a week to find out which one of these shows is the best. As of last week, we dropped off with getting rid of Plunderer. And I gotta say, after I uploaded that video, I went back and watched the episode again, and it wasn't that bad, to be 100% honest. But it was more than worth dropping, because I only had 2 out of 5 episodes that I felt were worth watching. 2 out of 5. It's dropped, it's gone, it's done. Let's move on. There's some other shows that are kind of shaky at this moment, but we'll see which ones are worth watching and which ones aren't. But before I do that, y'all heard about the whole thing with the interspecies reviewers in Funimation? Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking when they said they were going to bring that on to their platform. I really don't. I'm sure there's many more things that they were planning on doing, many things they didn't know about. I don't know the whole story, but I'm sure it was one bad decision after another that led to them just straight up dropping it. But anyways, let's move on. Just finished It Invaded, and it continues to deliver. I said before, and I'm going to say it again, I am glad this show made it on my list. I don't know if I would have watched it otherwise. That is not to say this show is bad by any stretch of the imagination. It is superb. The way I pick out these shows is what people are talking about, basically from Mal and a couple of other websites that I pull from, and look at who's wanting to see what. This show barely made it on this list, and I'm so happy. But let's talk about the show itself. In this episode, we kind of got to see more of that one little girl character who I know she's not a little girl. I've said it before that she's a little girl type character. She's not. She's 23, I think they said in the show, and she is an adult. She is very good at thinking through the situations where she almost feels like she could be the main character's protege kind of a character. It's interesting how she thinks about things, and I'm starting to get the idea that part of this story is that to catch a killer, you have to think like a killer. You have to both put yourself in their shoes, both literally when they enter into these virtual reality worlds of the killer's minds, but also when you make the same thought processes that these killers are making, you're better able to follow the little clues that are hidden in plain sight from these guys. The fact that she's got that scar is a really, really good foreshadowing, I think, of what's going to be happening later. I'm looking forward to it. I'm able to follow the little clues this show has set up, but I'm never able to come up with the right answer. They all feel like they're pointing in one direction and it goes, nope, we're actually pointing in this direction. But I feel rewarded in that where it's like, oh, yeah, you're right. It should have been obvious, but it wasn't to me. And I'm loving that. This story is super well written. Animation is still doing great. It's not the best in every single scenario, but it's still phenomenal where it counts. The characters, the voice acting, everything in this show is great. I don't even have to tell you later, but I'm just going to say it now. Number 1 show this season, bar none. Excluding, previous IPs. I haven't watched anything from sequels this season at all. So we'll go through and just put this down as a keeper. Show, more than worth it. But what about the other shows this week? We got Bofuri. And I'm still enjoying what this show is trying to do. Again, this might be just a case of I've seen so many shows like this, and it's not that bad that I can just sit back, turn off my brain, and enjoy it. I hate having to do that with shows, but there are some shows where you can just sit back and enjoy it. Enjoy the ride. Unfortunately, this show is trying to do something that I really, really don't like. And that is, it's trying to be something new and different. And it knows it's not, but it's trying, and it's doing such a poor job at it. It's doing the same cliches over and over again, but being like, oh, here's the surprise. And I think the thing that got me the most this episode is the little, I don't know what they are. I'm calling them little gremlins. The programmers, the developers, whatever the hell they're supposed to be. I don't like them. Just gonna say that flat out. I don't like them. They are the dumbest thing this show has to offer so far. I get the idea that this is a cutesy show and that these characters will be cutesy looking for this show. And they want them to make them anonymous, so we don't know, to build that mystery. But the way they talked, and also their designs, these are probably the weakest designs I've seen so far. I get the idea. I get it. I don't like it. But it's the way they talked where it's like, this should have been a thing just to troll the players. This shouldn't have been able to be beaten. Then you make the object unbreakable. If we're going with even Sword Art Online rules. This show is just not doing a good job of taking the concepts that it's building off of and making them believable, tangible, worthwhile watching. It is getting to the point where I'm just starting to regret having to watch this show each week. To say that this is not a show worth, sitting down, watching with your friends, having a good time, I'm not saying that. I'm saying as this series of shows that I'm doing right now is concerned, this is on the bottom of the list of the shows we have right now. I don't hate it. I'm getting to that point where I'm having to drop a show based on the fact that I have too many shows to watch. This show is not bad. I just don't like what they're doing with it. It could be better. I know it could be better. They're just not doing it. Again, the saving grace of all saving graces with this show is that at least all the girls are cute, and most of the little animal enemy characters are cute. The turtle and the fox character are cute. I enjoy that. I enjoy what they're supposed to represent for these characters. I think it's dumb the way they're introduced. That's kind of where I'm at this moment with this show, is that it's enjoyable, but boy is it dumb. But I guess now the real question is, how bad is this show going to do in comparison to others? So let's just skip on with the next couple of shows. So we go from one show that's not really doing much with its environment to another show that's purely built around environment. And I don't just mean that it's in the world of its own. I mean it builds a world of its own that you can believe, you can feel, and that you understand, if not some of its rules, most of its rules. And that's a good thing. This show is doing good world building. And that's kind of an important thing. For a show that is not 100% a driving story, but a story that is interesting enough because of the characters, the magic in the world, the mystery of it all. It is so well done and aesthetically pleasingly put together, just between character designs, character backgrounds, character acting, composition of the animation itself is all really, really good. I highly, highly recommend this show for anybody. Even if you don't understand a lot of Japanese folklore and culture, this story, amazingly enough, I think, or at least in my opinion, this story is coming across in a way that you don't have to understand Japanese folklore. I didn't know that Hanako-kun was a thing in Japanese society where almost every Japanese school has a haunted bathroom stall. We had something similar when I was a little kid where it was like a cursed toilet where if you sat on it, even if you didn't have a choice, you got bad luck for the day, you probably got a bad score on your test that you studied for, something like that. We had something like that when I was in elementary school. Japanese are a little bit more into their folklore culture and their superstitions and stuff like that. So this show is doing a very good job of like explaining it to you, but not treating you like you're dumb on that. I like the way they're doing it. I like the characters that they introduced. I like the conclusions to a lot of these stories that they're bringing. The series is now further along than where I was in the manga, and I'm interested to see more. I'm wanting to know more. I have no idea where the story is going, but I'm in it for the long run. This story is good. This show is good. And I'm trying not to spoil anything, but I'm going to say, the Fox Girl, so far, best girl. Just going to say that. I'm enjoying this show. I really have nothing else more to say, so let's skip on. What the fuck is this show? Every single thing about this show is just pure insanity, and for some reason I keep coming back to it. Like, straight up. I don't get it, but it makes sense. It works. And I feel like I have too small of a brain. Straight up, this show has more going on than I am capable of comprehending at one moment without really anything going on. And it's so interesting. I like to write, and I wish I could write as good as this story is. Just the characters, the insanity of it all, the believability of it, of this world being just a messed up place, and just it. I can't even put it into words. Just what the fuck. That's all I'm left with is what the fuck. And I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it. Because somehow, even with all this messed up stuff, the girls are at least halfway cute. I know I say that about every single show, but I am a simple man with simple desires. I enjoy my good-looking anime girls. But then the fight scenes are also really, really cool, really, really intense. The camera movements in those fights are really, really good. Really, really tight. The build up, the climax, everything about this show is good. The one thing, and I'm going to probably be saying this until the show is dropped, the one thing that bugs me, and okay, let's break down this episode. And I will tell you the one thing I didn't like. And it is literally one thing for just the briefest of moments. Everything else about this show was good. They're trying to figure out who this guy is that made this monstrosity of a main character. They can't seem to find him. They're tracing him back using magic that can basically recreate the wizard magician person thing, and they come across a clue using that, and it turns out that the clue is the guy's already dead to a point. They found part of his corpse. They just need to bring it back. They can't bring it back right away because the person who is able to like revive corpses isn't doing magic right and is like addicted to a drug. They find a creature that can bring people back, but it's not working at this moment. I don't understand that part. But in the main storyline of this dude, he is tracking down a doctor who is able to experiment on the sorcerers, the magicians, whatever. I've seen different translations for different things. He's able to experiment on them, and his house is covered in so much magic that it like warps itself and all this kind of stuff, makes it into like a madhouse. And they find a way using him and his macabre experiments of taking apart these sorcerers and rebuilding them as stuff. He's able to make a doorway to the sorcerer's world, and that's where it ends. The one thing I didn't like about this show is literally the way he moved. He felt stiff as a board. Like, straight up, you could have PS1 characters with more fluid movement than he had. He was stiff, he was rough. He looked cool, he had an interesting design and an interesting background from what little they gave him. But he was interesting, but stiff. And that's my big problem with this show, is just the animation. The story being, incredible and very, I want to say nuanced, but I think just carefully fucked up is probably a better word for it. The animation is killing it for me, but not enough for me to drop it. I'm enjoying this show. I'm enjoying everything about it, minus the animation. I've complained about it so long right now that I do want to go back and say, I am thankful for them doing this. I am thankful for them animating it the way they are. Because I don't want stale animation from every single series. This is why we get shows like Bofuri, where they take a concept, try to gussy it up, but then fail to do that and then fail to make it interesting. This story, this show is doing a great job, and I'm glad that they decided to animate it in a 3D CGI environment. It is working for itself. I am enjoying it. Like I said, so far it's just the one scene of the doctor moving that's been upsetting me about this episode. It's a good show. It's definitely worth a watch if you can handle the insanity. But I highly recommend it. It's not getting dropped anytime soon. But we got more shows to watch, like... I know I said a lot of things about how this show is a lot smarter than people are taking it credit for, and that it's not that hard to understand. I can now kind of guess why people would think this show is hard to understand. And it's purely for one scene only so far. The rest of the show has been good. This is one scene where I can give them a little bit of leeway and say, yeah, it was kind of hard to follow. And that was the scene where the chick and Satoru are having the conversation, and they show both his side of the conversation and her side of the conversation, but also his internal monologue of what he thinks is going on. The fact that I had so much to read in a short amount of time made it complicated. If I heard this in its native language and I understood it in its native language without having to read subtitles, it would have been a much easier time going through this show. Or that scene specifically. This show is not that hard still. One thing that I will knock off points for is this show, the art is usually very, very striking, but they're starting to become fewer and fewer as time goes on. There's a couple of good ones in this episode, especially when they were trying to show the fight between Hayashi and Tsukasa. The big problem was, straight up, there was one shot of him as a water being thing in his image where he looked like something out of a PS2 era graphics thing. His lips... Actually, you know what? I wouldn't even give it that much credit. I'm going to sound mean for a second. I love this show, so it's not like an insult or a bad thing, but it looked like it was from Reboot, the way those mouths and lips were moving. Again, Reboot is a really, really good show. Watch it. Not anime, but watch it. But this show decided to use something that looked like it was made back in the 90s with its best technology. In the modern era, unless you're trying to do that, or if you're better at hiding it, don't do it. Don't do it like they did in Make It the Focus. That was a bad shot. But the rest of the show is very well composed. I'm actually starting to get into some of the more nuanced music, though I can't actually say that about the opening. I don't hate TK or whatever his name is. I don't hate his stuff. I think that a lot more of the softer, jazzier parts of this show's OST are nicer than his opening. That's just my opinion on it. But so far, this episode was harder to watch. I will admit, it was harder to watch. It's not bad. The show is keeping up, for the most part. This is the week episode. So I'm giving it a pass. I'm not being like, oh, this is absolute garbage. But if I had to rate this week's episodes, I don't know if I'd put it in my top 3. We'll put it that way. But this show still so far is in my top 3, because this is 1 week episode. 2 or 3 week episodes, it might get dropped. But for now, it is doing good. I am keeping up with it. It's not getting dropped. Not for this one episode that was tougher than the others. But we got more to watch. We're a little bit over halfway done, so let's keep trucking along. I love this show, Rikekoi, a little bit too much. And I think the reason for it is because I do things that these characters do. And I mean that in a very serious way. I occasionally will do that little math equation to figure out how good the shoes were that they did in like the little bit earlier parts of the date. Yeah, I will do that kind of stuff. Not to the extreme that they did, but I will break it down into a numeric value. How good is the thing that they are looking for? I do that kind of stuff. Honestly, in the end, I just feel like this show is doing a good job of letting me empathize with these characters. And though it's not the best animated, it has got one thing down pat. It has its formula, go figure. It has its formula, and it's following true to that formula. It's staying very thorough in how it tells its jokes and what kind of jokes it's going to deliver. And it does it in a way that each week we know what we're going to get and we're not upset by it. It's funny that way. There's very few comedy shows that, especially from Japan in anime, where they do that good. This is one of those shows where you can watch it, know what to expect, and still laugh at the joke. I called almost every single punchline this episode, and it still made me laugh. There was a couple that caught me off guard, but most of them still made me laugh even when I knew the joke. That's what this show is doing right. I know these jokes, but they're funny. They are funny still. Minimum animation and the fact that these characters are able to be empathized and the jokes being funny and pretty much just everything coalescing together into a really good short story. Or maybe not short story. Maybe better just to put it, it's a really good manga that's been animated. I don't like that where these shows do that. But this show is just a animated manga. I don't hate it. It's doing its job right and making me want more. That's all you can ask for a show like this. So it's getting a pass for now. Definitely not going anywhere anytime soon. But let's move on to the next one. I think I know what this show is trying to do. I think I get it. This show is making us want to play the visual novels. Why? Because the visual novels are good. This is not... How to put it? I don't hate this. I don't hate this at all. But because I know what Nekopara is capable of, thank you, 18 patches. But I know what this series can do good. This isn't good. This is stupid. This is dumb. The best part about this episode so far was the part where they were doing the body measurements. And I don't have to go into details as to why. That was the best part of the show. I feel as though these characters are just falling flat in comparison to what we know they could be. In the meanest way possible to say it, because the voice actresses they're just not as good as the originals. The animation somehow is worse than the visual novel. It's a visual novel. The only thing redeeming it at this moment is that there's sexy scenes with cute cat girls in it. And the cat girls, because of whoever's the girl who created, I know it's a female, but the chick who created the series, she did a good job designing these characters that even a company that's not as good of an animation company was able to take these characters and still make them cute. That is the only saving grace for this show so far. I hate to be that way, but it be that way. I just don't like it. And again, the only thing that's making me watch this show is the cute girls and the fact that I can always go back and play the visual novels. That's it. That's all. Next, please. Somali. I don't know what you do to me. You relax me, you fill me with joy, and then you always fill me with tension right there at the end. I don't know if that's planned or not. Because I was about ready to shed a tear. A very, very manly tear, but a tear nonetheless. With that ending right there. But it's mainly me. I get very emotional at these very parent-child relationships. I don't want to get into too many details, but that feeling of the ultimate love a parent has for a child and seeing it in action does pretty much bring a tear to my eye. Every single time. There's been plenty of series. Personally, I blame the scene where Mufasa dies in The Lion King for that. That's my very first movie I saw as a kid, and I blame that for my reaction to this show's central concept. But this show is still good. I'm still liking the art in it. The cave scenes are great, but pretty much everything else is kind of lackluster when it comes to the background art. Music's still very good, very poignant, very much gets the point across. And just the characters are good. That's the best thing about this show, is that the characters are really, really deep and interesting, even if they're on just for a little while. They have that sense of realism in them. So I don't know what much more to say about this show other than I just like that emotional resonance that I have with this show and what it's going for. I really do love that. But beyond that, there's not really much to say that I didn't say last week. Which is kind of not a good thing, because we're running out of shows to drop because they're bad. We're starting to run into shows that are droppable because they're just not that good. Not to say this show is bad. Not at all. This show is really, really good. It just may not be good enough to last for too much longer. I don't know how else to put it. I highly recommend watching it. I'm probably going to finish this series no matter what. Actually, I know I'm going to finish this series no matter what. But for the anime battle royale, I'm most likely going to drop this eventually. Is it bad enough this week? Hard to say. But it's definitely not keeping me as interested as other shows are. But I just do still love it. But we got just one more show left to review. And it's Inspector. I don't have my feelings quite in line yet for this episode. But one thing I have kind of come to a conclusion on is that I think this would actually be a pretty good manga. Because it has that mystery, psychological, all that kind of stuff going on to it. But for the most part, it's just giving out information, not actually letting us learn about it naturally. It's very non-diegetic dialogue going on in this show. Most of the stuff we learn about these characters, these monsters, these things going on in the world is done through sitting around having a conversation and then letting the characters kind of come up with the conclusions on their own instead of us come up with the conclusions and then having the characters do something on that information. But I'm not disentertained. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. That's kind of the hard time I'm having with this show, is that I find this show enjoyable. I don't find it to be the greatest of this kind of thing. Gegege no Kitaro definitely does it best, but then there's also other shows like Hanako-kun. And I keep bringing Hanako-kun back up when I'm comparing it to this show, My biggest issue with this thing is that Hanako-kun and Inspector are doing the same thing, but in two different ways. One is doing a more natural and an adult version of it, while the other one is doing a more child-friendly one, while still trying to be edgy and interesting. And if you couldn't guess which one was which, Hanako-kun was the more adult one, and Inspector is the more childish one. And I think the biggest thing is that Hanako-kun has that more natural storytelling flow to it of traditional Japanese medium, which, yeah, is easier to digest for people who are young because they grew up with it, but it's also easier for the adults too because they grew up with it as well. This show, on the other hand, is trying to take a more modern approach and just coming off as edgy, in my opinion. It is doing a good job of keeping all of the different yokai and spirits and stuff, keeping them really real world for this show. But the way they're going about the mysteries and the stuff going on in it, the other parts of the story itself with the characters, it just isn't entertaining, and that's a big problem. And I'm just going to call it right now. I think that the girl that they've been trying to find out, the idol girl, why she died and everything, I don't think she's dead. I think that spirit is one of two things. One, they kind of hinted at that she has a older sister that looks very, very similar to her. I think that's her. That's why the face is missing. Two, there's another kind of trope going on in Japanese folk telling and stuff like that, in that the more the rumor spreads, the stronger the thing gets. So the violence and all that kind of stuff, and the sightings of this steel lady Nanase has been going on, but getting more and more extreme over time. That kind of leads me to believe that maybe the rumors are what's giving it its strengths. That's just my thoughts on it. I could be wrong on both accounts. I'm going to put down money saying that it is the one chick's older sister that is actually the ghost. My backup option is the other thing. If I'm wrong, hopefully they did a good job of saying, no, here's the clues that you missed. If they don't, then I will be upset. I can still be wrong and be okay, but if they don't give a good enough reason as to why I'm wrong, I will be upset. But for now, the show is good. We're moving on to our last little segment of this show, the Who Did Best, Who Did Worst this week. I don't know, it's a working title, I don't know. But, like always, we start talking off with our top 3 shows, move on to our bottom 3 shows, and right now our top 3 shows are... So, in third place, pushing out a show I absolutely love because Pet is not on this top 3 list. As I said before, this one was a little bit harder to get through than others. But Dorohedoro did a really good job with this episode. So I'm putting it in third place. I'm loving the atmosphere. I'm loving the environment, this chaotic world that they live in that feels lived in. They're doing a really, really good job of keeping this world interesting and engaging while having you go, what the fuck is going on? So, to be short on it, other than that one shot of the doctor moving, this episode was great. Not as good as other shows, like in second place, we have Rikei-koi. And Rikei-koi just continues to be funny and absurd. But this is one episode where I felt a little bit called out on how I live my life with the whole writing equations out to figure out which is the most affordable and worthwhile getting item. You don't decide how I shop for things. Just be glad I'm giving you money, company. So stop calling me out on stuff. But other than that, it's still cute. It's still great. I enjoy all of it. Like I said, this is a series that didn't need to be animated. But I'm enjoying the fact that I'm watching it animated. When I drop it, if I drop it, however it ends up going down, I'm switching to the manga afterwards. I've already decided that. But with that being said, there is one show that I can't watch the manga of, and that is our first place show, It Invaded. Does that have anything to do with why it's in first place? Actually, no. But it does, now that I think about it, make me want to watch it even more because this is the only way I'm going to get the story, for right now at least. I'm sure there's plenty of series that, once the original anime does so well, they make a manga version of it. They always do. But I'm hoping this show continues on and delivers. This one did a really, really good job of keeping me invested in these characters. They are starting to get crazier and more developed, and the main guy was barely even in it this time. He was only in there for the front half of the episode? He just kind of showed up and with camera trickery made me believe that he was walking into a murder scene, and then is like, nope, it's actually a murder scene used to hide evidence. It's really well done mysteries. It is taking from the masters who have done stuff like that before, hide a leaf in the woods so no one will be able to find it, hide a murder in amongst other murders. I know they did that in the last episode, not this episode, but that same kind of concept is still flowing through in this one. So they're taking what other classic mystery series have done and then making it their own, making it unique in its own way. And I'm really, really enjoying it. The concept is great. The execution is excellent. Everything about it is good. I'm especially loving the music. I think I'm going to go out and get the OST if ever it comes available. But I'm loving this show from start to finish. I don't think it's ever going to be dethroned. I really, really don't think it's ever going to leave the top 3 for any reason. But it's definitely never getting dropped. But with that being said, we still have to talk about our bottom 3. And in third, I guess, from last place, is going to be Somali. And I hate this. I hate having to say this. Because I am thoroughly enjoying Somali. I love every second of it, excluding the backgrounds. Everything about it is super, super well done, super, super interesting, and super, super healing. It makes me feel happy that I get to watch these episodes. Even though I'm stressed wanting to know what happens next, good job in the storytelling department, yes, but it doesn't make me feel like, oh, I have to watch it now. It's just like, ooh, I wonder what's going to happen next week. This is interesting. It's very, very well done. And to say it's in my bottom 3 is mean, but that's because we got so many other really good shows this season. So I hate putting that there in third place. This is the point of the year where I'm starting to have to kill off something that I don't want to. But I'm going to have to. And right now, in comparison to the other shows, Somali is in third to last place. Out of 9 shows. That's still really good to me, that we're that good along. But then we get down to our final 2, and honestly, they are tied for last place. And I have to only kill off one of them, but I have to kill off one of them. And those in last place, in order that we watched them, so no biases in ordering, is Bofuri and Nekopara. And for the exact same reasons. They're cute, they're cuddly, they're interesting, they're funny, and all these kind of great things. But when you know that there is better versions of these series out there, they become kind of stale and very dry really quickly. When you know that there's a better Nekopara out there that isn't even animated, you done messed up the animation. The voice actresses, I'm going to gripe on forever, is that they're not as good. They're not bad. Some of them are actually pretty good. Coconuts and Azuki, they are both really good voice actresses. I actually like Chocola's voice actress. I don't really care for Vanilla's, but the rest of them are all okay. They're not bad. They're just not good as the originals were. And then we have Bofuri, which is taking this concept of a cute girl in a video game world playing around and just being OP, but not really understanding what she's doing. I'm sure there are other examples, but I can't come up with anything off the top of my head. But this show is just not doing anything spectacular. It's cutesy enough to get by, and I'll probably watch it once the series is completed. But for right now, it's not drawing me in enough to make me want to watch that next episode. Yeah, I'm kind of like, okay, cool, I get to watch another episode of this show. But I don't sit there and go, okay, great, I get to watch another episode. It's just that there's more of it. Okay, cool, it's potato chips. They are potato chips. I don't like myself for watching it, but I don't hate myself for watching it. And that's how I feel about both of these shows. And I had to sit down there and ask myself, what is the one deciding factor that puts this show over the other? And the dumbest answer I can come up with is, I think the girls from Nekopara are cuter. That is it. That is the only thing keeping Nekopara on this week. Bofuri, I love you. You are a fun little show. But your girls aren't cute enough. And I'm very sorry to say that. But Nekopara comes from, to be blunt, it comes from a better pedigree. Sayori is a better artist. We'll just go with that. No offense to the original character designer. They are not bad designs. You just have a hard time being Sayori. She does really good girls. End of statement. And with that being said, we have to bid a final farewell to Bofuri. May you rest in peace beneath your shield. And with that being said, that is the end of week 5. Week 6 has got some pretty low competition to get through. There's only a couple shows that I'm willing to drop off without too much of a fuss. We got through all of them. Next week's going to be a little bit tough on some of these shows, and on me watching it. But I'll make it through. I'll power through and I'll watch them all, because that's what I set out to do. I want to thank you all again for coming out and watching this week's episode. Be sure to tune in next week. To get that done, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. You know the drill. Also follow me on Twitch and on Twitter. In the end, my name is Yoshino, and I'll see you guys next time. See ya!